Hello, Soren Deal here. This is my ist361 Sprint 3 project demo. What you're looking at is my Sprint 3 backlog items and how far I got into it. As you'll see, I did not finish my Sprint 3 backlog items. And that's just because, as Taylor Swift says, it is very hard to sit at a computer and think like a machine, and it is even harder to sit at a computer and estimate how long it is going to take you to think like a machine. So yeah, let's just cover these real quick. This is a backlog item to create a new feature, and this is to view performance stats by title. And this is a testing of that feature, and this is viewing performance stats by genre. As you see, both of these took me significantly longer than I thought they would. There were more things to be done here than I realized. I thought it would be a little bit simpler than it was. So let's look at my application and see how that looks. Okay, so this is, let's look at the title first. So this is my title stats display. Essentially what this is a very simple display that allows you to select a title and view the number of average concurrent players for that title over time. And so when you select a title, boom, you get a nice little chart, and that chart has time on the x-axis ranging from 26 June to 15 July, and that's when my data, that is the entire time frame that my data has existed. So that's what you see, and these are, the y-axis is number of concurrent players. This y-axis scales based on the result. So Faster Than Light had 3,000 concurrent players at one time while I was recording this data, and other games you'll see did not have that many players. Let's look at Lux in Time, 1 player. So you see the y-axis is scaled, and Lux in Time averages somewhere between 0 and 1 player from 27 June to 15 July. So another thing that's possible on this display is to display multiple games. Okay, well, one of the challenges that our professors laid out for us was to match a use case scenario, and I think I've done that here. What you can do here, a stakeholder in my project can view metrics, performance metrics, for free of a game, and typically that's not possible. Now my data quality is quite low right now because I don't have cron jobs set up to run the backend, so it's just being run manually, so it's only being pulled once or twice a day, so my data quality is low. But it eventually will be good, and this is a nice alternative to paying lots of money to see daily active users when you can see daily average concurrent players. Of course, it's limited by only being games that are on Steam and only Steam data. But yeah, so people will use this, or people may use this. It is people use something similar that costs money, so this is real user-facing content that matches some of my user stories. One of those user stories is about a bunch of developers who had a game that was a hybrid of several other games, and they wanted to estimate performance, estimate potential performance based on those games' data. Well, you can do that using this tool. And the way you can do that is just selecting multiple games. As you can see, select multiple games, you'll see how they perform in all of these games, as is typical of the vast majority of the games in my database, average between 0 and 1 users, 1 concurrent users. So Dangerous Bullets is a game that actually saw some play. But yeah, so they can do that. Now, there's a problem here, and that's that this is a big list of games. You can search through it. However, when you select the game in your search, all of the other games disappear. So I have a planned solution for this. It's just going to take some time. What that plan is to put another grid over here with a button. You select games here, you click the button, the games move over here. I may not even do the button, I may just do 2 grids. When you select a game here, it moves over here. If you select a game here, it moves back. And that will, and then this chart will display data from this grid rather than from this grid, and that will allow users to view multiple games in a way that makes sense. Anyway, Another note here is using evaluation license of Vaadin charts for. Turns out Vaadin charts cost money. I don't know what you would use Vaadin for, since it's data driven, if you weren't going to use the charts, and I didn't realize the charts costed money. But yeah, I'm using a free evaluation license. I'm not very happy about this. I'm using a free evaluation license that expires in 30 days, but that's after the class ends, so it'll be alright. But again, Vaadin costs money. It's an important note. Okay, so my other feature, genre stats. Sorry if this feels a little rushed. I've done this video a few times, and I always run out of time. So what you can do here is very similar. You view genres by view performance metrics by genre, and it's grouping all of the games in a genre together and displaying the average concurrent users per game. So what I need to add here is a legend that says how many games make up a genre, because like action has 38 average users per game, but there's like 200 games in the action genre. So it's actually averaging like 6,000 users. It's significant data that's not displayed on the chart and is available in even the data transfer objects. I just have to figure out how to add the legend. But there's another problem here, and that's that this contains something like 300 genres, but there's actually only 20 genres in my database, so there's just tons of duplicates, and that has to do with how I'm populating the grid. I know how to solve it, it just takes some time. So anyway, a developer or publisher could come in here and look at this and say, oh, you have, these genres, free-to-play genre is very popular, violent genre is very popular, and I think the third one is actually sexual content genre is popular on a users per game basis. So this data would potentially be useful to someone thinking about creating or purchasing the rights to a game. Alright, so let's jump into my code. It's much better on time. Okay, so let's look at the database query. This is very simple code, and I've talked about why it's simple for some reasons, but another reason it's simple, you may recognize this from my first sprint, from my title query, is I'm using a select from statement. So it's selecting and throwing data into data transfer objects from my database from exactly one table. And the way that's possible is thanks to a suggestion from my professor Steven, who said, use a view. And hey, turns out that makes Jooq feel much better if you do that. So here is just a quick look at my view, and actually there's something ugly here, and maybe I can get some feedback on it from you guys. Otherwise, or I'll have to get some feedback from someone else about how to do this better. But my view is actually a view on top of a view, and that's because this view, this first view here, has a column for average concurrent players by genre. So it sums up all of the average concurrent players for games of a certain genre, and then it also has a column for number of games in that genre, but because those are two aliases, and one of them is created from an aliased subquery, I couldn't find a way to reference those columns to divide them by each other to produce a third column. So I wanted another column on this view that was genre concurrent players divided by genre games, but I couldn't make that happen in Postgres. So I created another view on top of it where I did that, and you can see it right here, and it's just called average players, that column. So anyway, it's a view on top of a view, kind of a hack, not pretty, but my code here is pretty, and that's because of that suggestion to use a view, so thank you very much for that. So anyway, this get genres line is not used right now. This is how I'm eventually going to fix the problem with my grid showing multiple genres. I just didn't have time to do it before I made this video. So let's look at my genre stats view, my UI. Oh, and there's lots of stuff to take out of here. Lots of imports. I have lots of imports. So that's using lots of other people's code. Anyway, so let's just do a quick rundown. It's pretty simple. I import that query, the genre stats query, the database utility class, and I have a grid and a layout, and then this is just setting the grid and putting a selection listener on the grid so that when so that the chart is updated when something is selected. And frustration of mine, update grid really isn't necessary or used. It's called once here. I could just put the code there. But that code needs to be reworked anyway, like I talked about, so I'm not too worried about that right now. Also, this if statement is useless at this point, and I can get rid of it, and will. But anyway, the way update chart works is actually very frustrating to me. I spent a lot of time trying to do this, and what I found is that there's essentially no good way to remove a data series from a chart in Vaadin. And each line you saw in my charts, that was a series of data. Those series are populated with data items, which are my records in this case. In this case, they're actually the date of my record and the player value of my record. But to remove data from the chart, I would have to iterate through each of the series and remove the data items. I couldn't find a way to just remove a series. So as a hack workaround for that, it feels like a hack workaround, but maybe it's the only way to do it, is I regenerate the entire chart each time the chart is updated, which I'm sure is not ideal from a work factor standpoint. But anyway, let's just look at what the chart is. So this tells it it's a line chart. This creates an object from the chart configuration. And then I set the title of the chart here, the size of the chart here. I tell Vaadin that this is a time series chart here. I create an empty array list of that views records. And then up here, I created a set of those records by pulling in the selected items from the grid. I iterate through those. I assign the genre name as title. I assign this this array list as the search results, the array list, the list that is returned by the search results, and a data provider in Vaadin is essentially it's almost like an annotation saying this is going to be a list of these type of items. And then a data provider series takes that annotation, it's not really an annotation, I guess it's an object, but and creates a series out of it, which can then, you can't add a data provider directly to your chart, but you can add a series. So I set the Y value of the series, I set the X value of the series, I set the name of the series, which is just the name of the game, or the name of the genre in this case, and I add the series to the chart. And then this data this code here doesn't work right now, but it's supposed to just kind of dynamically rename the chart in a nice way. And then I put the chart on the layout and display the chart. And if I have time, no, I don't really have time. Title stats is very similar, except you can filter. There is a text field called filter that allows you to search for a specific game in the grid. But the grid and chart updating works the same way, with the same regenerating the chart in its entirety. And yeah, and the title stats query is also, it's actually even simpler. Yeah, I just love how simple that is. And it's using the same select from a view. So anyway, that is my project up to this point, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Y'all have a good one.